Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship looking out at the stars. The metal floor under his feet hummed with power. Around him, crew members worked at their stations, their blue skin glowing softly in the dim light. They were Zarians, and they ruled most of the galaxy. The Admiral was tall, even for his people. His forearms moved with practiced ease as he checked reports on his datapad. Today would be another easy day. Another primitive world would bow before the might of the Zarian Dominion. It always happened the same way. "Sir, we are approaching the target system," said his second-in-command, Officer Vexhan. "The locals call it Sol." Kethvar nodded. He had done this hundreds of times before. The process was simple. His fleet would arrive at a new world. They would show their power. The locals would surrender. Then the Dominion would take control and add another world to their empire. "What do we know about these humans?" he asked. Vexhan pulled up a holographic display. Images of pale pink creatures appeared in the air. They had only 2 arms and walked on 2 legs. They looked weak and soft. "They are very young, sir. They only started flying in space about 300 years ago. They have spread to 7 planets in their system plus many space stations, but their technology is far behind ours." The Admiral smiled. 300 years was nothing. His own people had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. These humans were like children playing with toys. "How many ships do they have?" he asked. "Our spies report maybe 200 military vessels. Small ones. Nothing that could threaten even one of our ships." Kethvar looked at his own fleet through the main window. 12 massive warships floated in space around his flagship. Each one was over 2 miles long and armed with weapons that could destroy a moon. Usually, he only brought 1 ship to handle, a primitive world. He had brought 12 because the Emperor wanted this done quickly. "Sir, we could probably handle this with just our flagship," Vexhan said. "These humans have never seen real space combat. They have been fighting small wars among themselves, but nothing serious." The Admiral agreed. From what he had read, humans spent most of their time fighting each other over silly things like land and resources. They had dozens of different governments that could not agree on anything. It would be easy to make them surrender. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "Standard formation. We will park our ships where they can see them clearly." The fleet moved toward the inner part of the Sol system. As they traveled, Kethvar thought about his long career. He had conquered over 40 worlds for the Dominion. Some had tried to fight back, but it never lasted long. When a primitive species saw the true power of advanced technology, they always gave up. The key was to show overwhelming force right away. The Dominion had learned this lesson long ago. If you made the enemy understand that resistance was hopeless, they would surrender without wasting lives. It was actually quite merciful. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the 3rd planet. They call it Earth." "Put it through," the Admiral said. He straightened his uniform and prepared to look impressive and threatening. A human face appeared on the main screen. It was a female with brown skin and short black hair. She wore a military uniform that looked almost comical compared to Zarian armor. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet," she said. "You have entered our space without permission. State your intentions." Kethvar was surprised. Most primitive species either panicked or tried to hide when they saw his ships. This human seemed calm. She even sounded like she was giving him orders. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the 47th Subjugation Fleet," he replied. "You will prepare to receive Dominion officials. Your system is now under our protection. Resistance is not necessary." The human admiral tilted her head slightly. "Protection from what?" "From war, from chaos, from the struggles that tear apart primitive civilizations," Kethvar explained patiently. "The Dominion brings order and peace. You will find life much better under our rule." "I see," Admiral Chen said. "And if we refuse this generous offer?" This was the moment when most species realized they had no choice. Kethvar gestured to his tactical officer, who sent images of the Zarian fleet to the humans. 12 massive warships appeared on their screens. each one larger than anything the humans had ever built. As you can see, refusal is not practical, the Admiral said. We have weapons that can crack planets. Your ships are toys compared to ours, but we do not wish to destroy. We wish to protect and guide. Admiral Chen studied the images for a long moment. Then she looked back at the camera. Her expression had not changed at all. I need to discuss this with my government, she said. How long will you give us to consider your offer? 1 of your days should be sufficient, Kethvar replied. We are not unreasonable. The transmission ended. The Admiral felt satisfied. The human Admiral had seen his ships and realized the truth. Tomorrow she would return with her government's surrender. It always happened this way. Sir, said his communications officer, we are detecting increased activity throughout the system. Ships are moving. Of course they are, Kethvar said. They are probably evacuating their leaders to bunkers or trying to hide their most valuable possessions. Standard behavior for a species about to surrender. But as the hours passed, something seemed wrong. The human ships were not running away or hiding. Instead, they seemed to be moving into positions around the system. More and more ships appeared on the sensors. Sir, Vexhan said nervously, we are now detecting over 800 human vessels. 800. The Admiral frowned. Our intelligence said they only had 200 ships. Perhaps they were hiding some, sir. Or maybe these are cargo ships they have converted for military use. Kethvar studied the tactical display. The human ships were smaller than his warships, but there were many of them, and they were moving in patterns that seemed almost organized. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen again. This time she was not alone. Behind her stood other humans in military uniforms, plus some creatures that looked like they might be from other worlds. Admiral Kethvar, she said, we have considered your offer. And, the Admiral asked, though he already knew the answer. We must respectfully decline. Sol System will remain independent. Kethvar felt a moment of confusion. This was not how it was supposed to go. Admiral Chen, perhaps you do not understand the situation. We have 12 ships capable of destroying your entire civilization. We understand perfectly, she replied. The question is, do you understand ours? What do you mean? Admiral Chen smiled, and for some reason that smile made Kethvar feel uncomfortable. We know about your empire, Admiral. We have been listening to your communications for decades. We know how you operate. You arrive with superior ships, make threats, and expect surrender. It works because most species are not prepared for war. And you are prepared? Kethvar asked. Admiral, my people have been preparing for war since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. When we found out the answer was yes, we asked ourselves one simple question. How do we fight someone bigger and stronger than us? The Admiral felt the first stirring of doubt. Your ships cannot match ours. No, they cannot, Chen agreed. But that does not mean we cannot fight. Suddenly, alarms began ringing on the Zarian bridge. The tactical officer called out, Sir, human ships are moving. They are not attacking directly. They are surrounding us. Kethvar looked at the display in growing alarm. The human ships had been hiding behind planets, asteroids, and space stations. Now they were coming out, not in a direct assault, but in complex patterns that split his fleet apart. Sir, they are using the asteroid belt as cover. We cannot get clear shots at them. Then blast through the asteroids, the Admiral ordered. Sir, when we fire at the asteroids, they break apart and, oh no. Kethvar watched in shock as his powerful energy beams shattered large asteroids into thousands of smaller rocks. The debris did not float harmlessly away. Instead, it flew toward his ships like bullets fired from a giant gun. They are using our own weapons against us, Vexhan said in amazement. More alarms sounded. Human ships were attacking from all directions, never staying still long enough for the Zarian gunners to target them effectively. They moved like insects, darting in to strike and then vanishing behind cover. Sir, the Devastator is reporting heavy damage. Human ships rammed their engine section. Rammed? Kethvar could not believe it. They crashed their own ships into ours? Yes, sir. Multiple ships. They seemed to be using suicide attacks. The Admiral stared at the battle display. This was impossible. No civilized species fought like this. Ramming attacks were the tactics of desperate animals, not intelligent beings. "Admiral," came Chen's voice over the communications, "this is your last chance to withdraw. Leave our system now and we will let your remaining ships go." "You cannot be serious," Kethvar said. "We still have more firepower than your entire fleet." "Yes, but you also have something we do not," Chen replied. "What is that?" "Something to lose." As if to prove her point, another human ship crashed into one of his cruisers. The human vessel was destroyed instantly, but the Zarian ship lost its main engines and began drifting helplessly. Kethvar realized with growing horror that these humans were willing to die to win. Not just willing, they seemed to consider it an honor. His own people were brave, but they fought to live and return home to their families. These humans fought like death meant nothing to them. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we have lost 6 ships. The humans show no signs of slowing their attacks." The Admiral looked around his bridge. His crew members were frightened. They had never faced an enemy like this. In all their wars of conquest, no species had ever fought back with such determination. "All ships, withdraw to safe distance," he ordered. "Prepare for hyperspace jump." "Sir?" Vexhan looked shocked. "We are retreating. We are regrouping," Kethvar said firmly. But he knew the truth. They were running away from an enemy that should have been easy to defeat. As his remaining ships limped toward the edge of the system, Admiral Chen's voice followed them. "Admiral Kethvar, when you report back to your superiors, make sure they understand something. We did not want this fight, but we were ready for it. If you come back with more ships, we will be ready for them too. Humans do not surrender." The transmission ended. Admiral Kethvar stood on his damaged bridge, trying to understand what had just happened. In one day, everything he knew about warfare had been turned upside down. "Prepare a message to High Command," he said quietly. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the humans are not like other species. Tell them—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Tell them we may have made a mistake." As the Zarian ships disappeared into hyperspace, human vessels moved to rescue survivors from the wrecked alien ships. Even in victory, these strange creatures showed mercy to their enemies. But Admiral Chen knew this was only the beginning. The Zarians would be back with more ships and better plans. When they came, humanity would need to be ready for an even bigger fight. The message was already being sent to every human world and station. The war had begun. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair aboard the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. 3 weeks had passed since the first Zarian attack. Her promotion to admiral had come with the weight of defending humanity's home system. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They were young, most of them. Earth's military had grown rapidly over the past century as humanity spread through space, but none of them had expected to face an alien empire so soon. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "We are receiving reports from our deep space sensors. The Zarians are coming back." Sarah nodded. She had known this day would come. The aliens would not accept defeat so easily. "How many ships this time?" "Estimated 200 vessels, ma'am." Much larger than the first fleet. Sarah felt her stomach tighten, but her expression remained calm. 200 ships. Against humanity's few hundred defenders scattered throughout the Sol system. On paper, it looked hopeless. But Sarah Chen had not become admiral by looking at papers. She had earned her rank by understanding that numbers did not always tell the whole story. "Send word to all fleet commanders," she ordered. "Operation Hornets. Nest is now active." Lieutenant Torres hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure? The casualties will be acceptable," Sarah said firmly, "because the alternative is extinction." She stood and walked to the main display where a map of the Sol system showed the positions of both human and approaching alien forces. The Zarians were coming in a tight formation, their massive ships moving like a steel wall through space. It was exactly what she had hoped they would do. Sarah had spent her entire life studying military history. As a child, she had read about ancient battles on Earth. As a young officer, she had analyzed every war humanity had ever fought. She understood something the Zarians did not. Advanced technology could not replace good tactics. "Ma'am," called Commander Park from the tactical station, "the alien fleet will reach the outer system in 6 hours. Very well. Signal all units. Begin Phase 1. Across the Sol system, human ships began to move, but they did not form up for a direct battle. Instead, they scattered like leaves in the wind, taking positions behind asteroids, moons, and space stations. The Zarian fleet, led by Admiral Kethvar in his rebuilt flagship, entered the system with confidence. The Admiral had brought 10 times as many ships as before. He had energy shields, powerful weapons, and armor that could stop most attacks. What he did not have was experience fighting an enemy that refused to play by the rules. "Human ships detected throughout the system," reported his tactical officer. "But they are not forming battle lines." Admiral Kethvar studied his display with growing confusion. The human vessels seemed to be hiding rather than preparing to fight. This made no sense. How could they win a battle by running away? "Perhaps they have realized the hopelessness of their situation," suggested Officer Vexahan. "They may be preparing to surrender." But Kethvar remembered Admiral Chen's last words. "Humans do not surrender." Something about this felt wrong. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the humans." Admiral Chen appeared on the screen, standing on the bridge of her ship. Behind her, Sarah could see crew members working calmly at their stations. They did not look like people about to give up. "Admiral Kethvar," she said, "welcome back to Sol System." "Admiral Chen," the Zarian replied, "I trust you have had time to reconsider your position. As you can see, we have brought significantly more ships this time." "Yes, I noticed," Sarah said. 237 vessels, if our count is correct. Quite impressive. Kethvar was surprised. How had the humans counted his ships so accurately? His fleet was still hours away from the inner system. "Then you understand that resistance is futile," he said. "Surrender now, and your people will be treated well under Dominion rule." Sarah smiled, the same smile that had worried him before. "Admiral, has anyone ever told you about a place on Earth called Thermopylae?" "I do not understand the reference." "Long ago, a small group of warriors held a narrow pass against a much larger army. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway. Do you know why?" Kethvar felt uncomfortable again. "Please explain." "Because sometimes the point is not to win. Sometimes the point is to make the enemy pay such a high price for victory that they question whether it was worth it." Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began ringing throughout his fleet. Human ships were attacking from all directions, emerging from behind cover to strike and then vanishing again. But this time, the attacks were different. The humans were not trying to destroy his ships directly. Instead, they targeted specific systems. Engines, sensors, communication arrays. They were trying to disable rather than destroy. "Sir, the destroyer squadron reports they are being attacked by small human fighters. The fighters are too small and fast for our main guns to target effectively." Kethvar watched in amazement as tiny human ships, no bigger than cargo shuttles, swarmed around his massive cruisers like angry insects. Each fighter carried missiles designed to penetrate ship armor at specific weak points. "How do they know where to strike?" he demanded. "Sir, it appears they have detailed information about our ship designs." The Admiral felt a chill. During the first battle, the humans had captured several damaged Zarian vessels. They must have studied them, learned their weaknesses. "Sir, Squadron 7 reports heavy damage. Human ships are using some kind of new weapon." On the tactical display, Kethvar watched human vessels fire what looked like simple metal bars at his ships. The bars moved incredibly fast, powered by magnetic accelerators. When they hit, they punched through even advanced Zarian armor like it was paper. "Kinetic weapons," his science officer explained. "Crude but effective. They accelerate simple projectiles to tremendous speeds." "But the energy requirements must be enormous," Kethvar protested. "Yes, sir. But humans seem to have solved that problem by using their entire industrial base. Every space station, every mining platform, every cargo ship has been converted into a weapons platform. The Admiral stared at his tactical display. The humans had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Every asteroid mining operation now launched metal projectiles at his ships. Every space station fired missiles. Even civilian transports had been armed with military equipment. Sir, we are detecting massive energy signatures from the human ships. They appear to be overloading their reactors. For what purpose? His question was answered moments later as a human destroyer, its hull glowing white-hot, crashed directly into one of his battleships. The explosion was enormous, destroying both vessels instantly. Another ramming attack? Vexhan asked in disbelief. But this was not like the desperate ramming attacks from the first battle. This was coordinated, planned. Human ships were deliberately sacrificing themselves to take out specific Zarian vessels. Sir, the humans are targeting our command ships specifically. They know which vessels contain our senior officers. Kethvar realized with growing alarm that the humans were not just fighting. They were hunting his commanders. Every attack was designed to disrupt Zarian command and control. How can they coordinate so effectively? He demanded. We are jamming their communications. Sir, they appear to be using a communication method we cannot intercept. Some kind of quantum entanglement system. The Admiral watched as his carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. His ships were scattered across the system, unable to support each other effectively. Human forces struck wherever his fleet was weakest, then vanished before he could respond. Worst of all, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Intercepted communications revealed crew members making jokes during combat, placing bets on which ship would score the next hit, even singing songs while under fire. Sir, the Retribution reports critical damage. They are requesting permission to withdraw. Granted, Kethvar said, another of his best ships, crippled by an enemy that should have been crushed hours ago. Admiral, came Chen's voice over the communication system, I hope you are beginning to understand our position. Your position appears to be suicidal, Kethvar replied. Not suicidal, Sarah corrected. Committed. There is a difference. We fight because this is our home. You fight because your emperor told you to. Which of us do you think has more reason to win? The Admiral had no answer for that. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy that fought for something they believed in, rather than something they were ordered to do. Sir, we have lost 40 ships. Human casualties appear to be minimal. Minimal? How is that possible? They evacuate their crews before ramming attacks. The ships are controlled by artificial intelligence during the final approach, and their smaller vessels are heavily automated. Most attacks are carried out by machines rather than living beings. Kethvar felt sick. The humans were using technology not to make war easier, but to make sacrifice more effective. They had found a way to fight with the determination of suicide, attacks while preserving their people. Sir, incoming priority transmission from Fleet Command. Admiral Morden wishes to speak with you directly. The Admiral's superior appeared on a secondary screen. Admiral Morden was old, even for a Zarian, and his 4 eyes burned with anger. Admiral Kethvar, explain to me why your fleet is retreating from a primitive world. Sir, the humans are not primitive. They are unlike any enemy we have faced. They have been in space for 3 centuries. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Yes, sir, but they have spent those 3 centuries learning how to kill each other. They are very good at it. Admiral Morden's expression grew dangerous. Are you telling me that the might of the Dominion cannot defeat a single world? Sir, I am telling you that this single world has been preparing for war their entire existence. They do not fight like a civilization trying to preserve itself. They fight like a weapon trying to destroy its target. The communication ended abruptly. Kethvar knew he would face serious consequences for this failure, but right now his concern was keeping his remaining ships intact. All vessels, withdraw to rally point 7, he ordered. We will regroup and... Sir, human ships are pursuing. They are not letting us withdraw cleanly. Sarah Chen's voice came over the speakers one more time. Admiral Kethvar, before you leave, I want you to understand something. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Every ship you send, we will destroy. Every world you threaten, we will defend. This is what happens when you try to conquer a species that considers war an art form. As the battered Zarian fleet limped away from Sol System, Admiral Kethvar composed his report with shaking hands. How could he explain to his superiors that humanity had turned warfare into something he had never seen before? The humans did not just fight to win, they fought to teach their enemies that some victories cost more than defeats. Behind them, human ships began salvaging the wrecks of Zarian vessels, learning more about their enemies' technology. Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, already planning for the next battle. Because she knew the Zarians would be back, and when they came, humanity would be ready. Emperor Zexthor stood in the great throne room of the Dominion capital, his forearms crossed in anger. The massive chamber was built to intimidate, with walls that stretched up into darkness and columns that could hold up mountains. For 3,000 years, no enemy had ever threatened this place. Now, reports of defeat kept arriving from the frontier. 2 fleets, the Emperor said, his voice echoing off the stone walls. 2 of our finest fleets defeated by a single primitive world. Admiral Morden knelt before the throne, his blue skin pale with fear. Around the chamber, other high-ranking officials watched nervously. Failure was not something the Dominion dealt with well. Your Imperial Majesty, Morden said carefully, the humans are not what our intelligence reports suggested. They fight with tactics we have never encountered. They are barely out of their own system. Zexthor roared. How can creatures that learned to fly yesterday defeat warriors who have conquered half the galaxy? General Krovex, the Dominion's chief military strategist, stepped forward. She was older than most Zarians, her skin marked with scars from many battles. Majesty, I have studied the battle reports carefully. The humans do not fight like other species. They have turned warfare into art. Explain. Most species we conquer fight to defend their homes and families. They want to survive. But humans seem to fight for the pleasure of fighting itself. They take risks that no rational being would take. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You are saying they are insane? No, Majesty. I am saying they are dangerous in a way we never expected. They study war the way our scientists study physics. They create new tactics for entertainment. They have games where children learn military strategy. Zexthor turned to his intelligence chief, Minister Yarthan. What do our spies tell us about human society? The minister's voice shook slightly. Majesty, human history is disturbing. They have been fighting wars continuously for their entire recorded history. They have invented thousands of different ways to kill each other, and they remember all of them. What do you mean? They study their past wars like we study sacred texts. Every battle, every tactic, every victory and defeat is recorded and analyzed. They learn from enemies who died thousands of years ago. General Krovex nodded grimly. This explains why they fought so effectively against us. They were not improvising. They were using tactics developed over millennia of constant warfare. Emperor Zexthor began to pace, his footsteps echoing through the chamber. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds by following a simple formula. Show overwhelming force, accept surrender, establish control. It had worked for thousands of years. If their tactics are so effective, he said, why did they never conquer other worlds before we arrived? Because they were too busy fighting each other, Minister Yarthan replied. Until recently, they were divided into nearly 200 separate nations. They spent more time warring among themselves than exploring space. And now? Now they are united against us. We have given them a common enemy. The Emperor stopped pacing. A terrible thought was forming in his mind. Minister, how many humans are there? Approximately 12 billion in the Sol system, Majesty, but they are rapidly expanding to other worlds. 12 billion warriors, Zexthor whispered. Not all of them are warriors, Majesty, Admiral Morden said quickly. Many are civilians, scientists, workers. No, General Krovex interrupted. You misunderstand human society. Every human is trained for war. It is part of their culture. Even their children play games that teach combat tactics. Their entire civilization is a military organization disguised as a peaceful society. Silence fell over the throne room. The implications were staggering. The Dominion was not facing a single world defended by a small military. They were facing an entire species that had evolved to be warriors. Majesty? Came a new voice from the entrance. A communications officer rushed in, his face pale with panic. Urgent news from the frontier worlds. Speak. The humans have left their system. They are attacking our colonies. Emperor Zexthor felt his blood turn cold. Attacking how? Small groups, Majesty. They appear at our worlds without warning, strike our military installations, and vanish before our fleets can respond. General Krovex closed her eyes. They are using our own tactics against us. Hit and run attacks. We taught this to our own forces for dealing with rebellions. But how do they travel so far so fast? The Emperor demanded. Their ships are slower than ours. The communications officer swallowed nervously. Majesty, they appear to be using captured Dominion vessels, ships they took during the battles at Sol. Impossible. Our ships have security systems, which the humans have apparently bypassed, Admiral Morden said quietly. Majesty, these creatures learn very quickly. They reverse engineer our technology, improve upon it, and use it against us. More officers began arriving with reports. Each one brought worse news. 3 supply convoys destroyed in the Kethmar sector. Orbital shipyards at Vextoran under attack. Communication relay at Mordashk completely destroyed. Emperor Zexthor listened to the reports with growing horror. The humans were not just defending their home. They were going on the offensive, striking at Dominion infrastructure throughout their territory. How many human ships are involved in these attacks, he asked. Unknown, Majesty. They use different ships for each attack. Some appear to be modified cargo vessels. Others are clearly military designs we have never seen before. General Krovex studied the tactical displays. They are targeting our supply lines and communication networks. Classic asymmetric warfare. They cannot defeat our main fleets, so they are trying to starve and blind us instead. More reports coming in, another officer announced. The humans are broadcasting messages to our client species. They are encouraging rebellion. What kind of messages? Technical information, Majesty. Instructions for building weapons, coordinating resistance, disrupting Dominion control systems. They are teaching other species how to fight us. Zexthor felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. For 3,000 years, the Dominion had maintained control through fear and superior technology. Now the humans were sharing the tools of resistance with every oppressed world in the galaxy. Majesty, Minister Yarthon said quietly, we are receiving reports of uprisings on 17 worlds. Species that have been peaceful for centuries are suddenly building weapons and attacking our garrisons. Using human tactics? Yes, Majesty. The same hit-and-run methods, the same targeting of our infrastructure. It appears the humans have created an instruction manual for rebellion and distributed it throughout our territory. Admiral Mordoon looked up from his datapad. Majesty, I recommend we assemble the Grand Armada. 500 ships. We can crush the human homeworld and end this before it spreads further. 500 ships? General Krovex shook her head. Admiral, you still do not understand what we are facing. The humans do not think like us. They do not care about preserving their homeworld if they can damage us enough in the process. What do you mean? I mean they might destroy their own planets rather than let us capture them. I mean they might fill their entire system with nuclear mines and dare us to enter. I mean they might evacuate their population and turn Sol into the largest weapon in history. The Emperor stared at his general. You think they would destroy themselves? Majesty, these are creatures who ram ships into our vessels while singing songs. They evacuate their crews and let artificial intelligence control suicide attacks. They have already shown they value victory over survival. A new communication came in, this one directly from the front lines. Admiral Kethavar appeared on the main screen, his uniform torn and his expression haunted. Majesty, I must report that the human offensive has reached the Morketh system. They have destroyed our main fleet base there. How many ships did they use? The Emperor demanded. 7, Majesty. 7 small vessels against our entire garrison fleet. 7 ships defeated an entire fleet? They did not fight us directly. They turned our own base against us. Somehow they infiltrated our computer systems and caused our automated defenses to attack our own ships. Then they detonated the fuel storage facilities while our fleet was trying to dock for repairs. Silence fell over the throne room again. The humans were not just using their own tactics effectively. They were finding weaknesses in Dominion systems that no one had ever noticed before. Admiral, General Krovik said carefully, how did they infiltrate our computers? We do not know. Our security systems show no evidence of intrusion. It is as if they understand our technology better than we do. Minister Yarthan stepped forward. Majesty, I believe I know what happened. Our intelligence reports suggest that humans approach problems differently than we do. When we encounter a new technology, we learn to use it. When humans encounter new technology, they learn to break it. Break it? They call it hacking. They study systems not to operate them but to find flaws and exploit them. It is another form of warfare to them. Emperor Zexthor began to understand the true scope of the problem. The humans were not just good fighters. They were good at everything that could be turned into fighting. Technology, psychology, logistics, communications. They had weaponized their entire civilization. Majesty, another officer reported, we are receiving a direct transmission from the human admiral. She wishes to speak with you personally. Zexthor hesitated. No primitive species had ever demanded an audience with the Emperor, but nothing about this situation was normal. Put her through. Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but determined. Behind her, Sarah could see human officers, working calmly at their stations. Emperor Zexthor, she said, I believe it is time we talked. You dare address the ruler of the galaxy? Zexthor replied, trying to maintain his authority. I address the leader of a failing empire, Sarah said bluntly. Your fleets are scattered. Your colonies are in revolt. Your allies are questioning your strength. How long do you think you can maintain control? The Emperor's anger flared. You think you can threaten the Dominion? Emperor, I do not need to threaten you. I am simply pointing out facts. Every day this war continues. You lose, more than we do. We are fighting for our survival. You are fighting to maintain your pride. And you think pride is not worth fighting for? Sarah smiled sadly. Emperor, pride is worth dying for. But is it worth watching your entire civilization collapse? Zexthor stared at the human admiral. She was offering him something no enemy had ever offered before, a way out that did not involve complete humiliation. What are you proposing, he asked. A new arrangement. The galaxy is large enough for both our peoples, but it cannot survive the kind of war we are capable of fighting. You would accept peace? I would accept coexistence, but not under Dominion rule. The days of empire are ending, Emperor. The question is whether you will help us build something better, or whether you will force us to tear down everything you have built. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in silence. Emperor Zexthor looked around at his advisors, seeing doubt in their eyes for the first time in his reign. The humans had not just defeated his fleets. They had proven that the Dominion's way of ruling the galaxy was no longer possible. The real war was just beginning. Dr. Lyra Vexthol stared at the data scrolling across her laboratory screens in growing amazement. As the Dominion's chief xenopsychologist, she had studied hundreds of alien species, but nothing had prepared her for the human mind. This cannot be correct, she muttered, checking her calculations again. Her assistant, a young researcher named Kevbar, looked up from his own workstation. Doctor, what are you finding? According to this analysis, humans do not fight for the same reasons as other species, Lyra said. Most civilizations wage war to defend resources, territory, or survival. But humans... She paused, struggling to understand the data. Humans appear to fight for entertainment. Entertainment? Surely you mean honor or glory? No, I mean entertainment. Look at these cultural records we captured from their communication networks. She brought up images on the main display. They create fictional stories about war. They play games that simulate battle. They study ancient conflicts that have no relevance to their current situation. Kevbar studied the display in confusion. But why would they spend time on irrelevant conflicts? Because to humans, no conflict is irrelevant. They learn from every battle ever fought by anyone, anywhere. They have turned warfare into a science, an art and a form of recreation all at the same time. The laboratory door opened and General Krovex entered. The old soldier looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept in days. Doctor, I need your analysis of human psychology. The Emperor is demanding answers. Lyra activated a holographic display showing the structure of the human brain. General, humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Their neural development is shaped by constant competition and conflict. Explain. Most species evolve to cooperate within their groups and avoid conflict when possible. Humans evolved to compete constantly, even within their own communities. They turned this competitive drive into the foundation of their entire civilization. General Krovex frowned. But competition should make them weak, not strong. A divided species cannot fight effectively. That is where you are wrong, Lyra said. Human competition is not like ours. They compete to become better, not to destroy each other. They use conflict to improve themselves. She brought up video recordings from human military training facilities. Watch how they prepare for war. They do not simply learn to follow orders. They learn to think, to adapt, to overcome any obstacle. Every human soldier is trained to be a strategist. Impossible. You cannot have armies where every soldier thinks independently. Humans can. They have developed what they call mission-type orders. They tell their soldiers what needs to be accomplished, not how to accomplish it. Each individual finds their own way to contribute to victory. Kevbar looked puzzled. But that should create chaos. It does create chaos, Lyra agreed. Controlled chaos. Humans have learned to use unpredictability as a weapon. Their enemies cannot predict what they will do because they themselves do not know until the moment arrives. General Krovex studied the brain scan display. You are saying they are naturally unpredictable? I am saying they have evolved to thrive in unpredictable situations. While other species seek order and stability, humans actively create disorder and then adapt to it faster than their enemies can. The general's communication device chimed. She answered it quickly. Krovex here. General, this is Admiral Morden. We have a problem. The humans have somehow infiltrated our computer networks across 12 star systems. They are broadcasting directly to our subject populations. What kind of broadcasts? Technical manuals, General. They are teaching other species how to build weapons, coordinate attacks, and disrupt our control systems. Worse, they are translating these manuals into every language in the galaxy. Lyra felt a chill as she understood the implications. General, they are not just fighting us. They are teaching the entire galaxy how to fight us. How is that possible? How could they learn so many alien languages so quickly? Because, Lyra said slowly, learning is what humans do best. They do not just acquire knowledge, they process it, improve it, and share it. They have turned information itself into a weapon. General Krovex closed the communication and turned back to the xenopsychologist. Doctor, I need to understand something. In all our previous conquests, subject species remained defeated. Even when they rebelled, they could never match our technology or tactics. Why are the humans different? Lyra pulled up more data files. Because humans approach problems fundamentally differently than any other species we have encountered. When most civilizations face a superior enemy, they try to find ways to avoid conflict. Humans ask a different question, which is, how do we kill something bigger than us? The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kevbar stared at his mentor in shock. They actively seek ways to fight superior enemies? More than that, Lyra continued. They prefer fighting superior enemies. Look at their entertainment, their literature, their historical records. Humans celebrate victories where they were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing impossible odds. But that is suicide. No, that is evolution. Humans became the dominant species on their planet by constantly fighting creatures larger, stronger, and more dangerous than themselves. They developed intelligence specifically to overcome physical disadvantages. General Krovex sat down heavily. Are you telling me that our technological superiority actually makes them more dangerous, not less? Exactly. Every advantage we possess becomes a puzzle for them to solve. Every weapon we deploy becomes a challenge for them to overcome. We are not fighting an enemy. We are providing entertainment for a species that considers warfare their favorite game. A new alarm began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red as automated systems announced a security breach. Attention all personnel. Unauthorized access detected in the primary computer core. All data is being copied to external systems. General Krovex grabbed her weapon and rushed toward the door. How could anyone penetrate our security? General, Lyra called after her, check the detention level. I think our human prisoners may not be as secure as we believed. The general's face went pale. The facility held 3 captured human officers, taken during the recent battles. They had been unconscious when brought in, and security scans had shown no hidden weapons or equipment. What the scans had not detected was the humans themselves. In the detention center, Security Chief Tovran watched in amazement as the 3 human prisoners worked with calm efficiency. Somehow they had escaped their cells without triggering any alarms. Somehow, they had accessed the facility's computer systems using nothing but spare parts from their cell furnishings. How did they do this? He asked his second-in-command. Sir, they appear to have built some kind of computer interface using pieces of their cell lighting system, fragments from their food containers, and wiring pulled from the wall panels. That is impossible. Those materials cannot be used to build computer equipment. Tell that to the humans, sir. On the security monitors, Tovran watched the human officers systematically downloading every piece of information in the facility's databases. Technical specifications, tactical analyses, strategic planning documents, everything. Sir, they are also uploading something into our networks. Uploading what? Unknown, sir. But whatever it is spreading through our entire communication system. General Krovex arrived at the detention center just as the humans finished their work. She watched through the reinforced glass as the 3 officers calmly destroyed their improvised equipment and returned to their cells. Open the communication channel, she ordered. The lead human officer, a woman with short gray hair, looked up at the camera and smiled. General Krovex, I assume. How do you know who I am? We have been listening to your communications. Your security is not as secure as you think. What did you upload into our systems? The human officer's smile widened. A gift. We uploaded detailed plans for every military technology humans have ever developed. Weapons, tactics, defensive systems, everything. Why would you give us your own technology? Because we did not give it to you, General. We gave it to everyone else. Krovex felt her blood freeze. What do you mean? Your communication network connects every world in the Dominion. Right now, every species you have conquered is receiving instructions on how to build human weapons, how to use human tactics, and how to coordinate human-style resistance movements. That information will allow them to fight us more effectively, Kevbar said in amazement. That is the point, the human replied. You rule through fear and superior technology. But fear disappears when people have the tools to fight back, and superior technology becomes worthless when everyone has access to it. General Krovex stared at the human officer. You have just armed our enemies against us. No, General. We have armed your victims against you. There is a difference. You realize this means the destruction of order in the galaxy. We realize this means the end of tyranny in the galaxy. What you call order, we call oppression. What you call peace, we call slavery. The human officer stood and walked to the core, transparent wall separating them. General, your empire was built on the assumption that superior technology equals superior right to rule. But humans have learned something your people never discovered. Which is? Technology is just a tool. What matters is not how advanced your tools are, but how creatively you use them, and creativity cannot be conquered. The communication ended as the humans returned to sitting quietly in their cells. General Krovek stood in the corridor, feeling the weight of the galaxy shifting around her. In her laboratory, Dr. Lyra Vexthol watched data streams flowing through the facility's networks. The human virus was spreading through every Dominion system, carrying technical knowledge to species that had been kept deliberately primitive for centuries. "Doctor," Kevbar said quietly, "what happens to the Dominion if every subject species has access to advanced weapons?" Lyra thought about the question. The Dominion controlled over 400 worlds through a combination of superior technology and divide-and-conquer tactics. If those subject species could suddenly communicate with each other and build effective weapons, "I think," she said slowly, "we are about to find out what happens when humans export revolution." Across the galaxy, on worlds that had been conquered, centuries ago ancient species read human technical manuals with growing excitement. For the first time in generations, they had hope. The Dominion had brought order to the galaxy through force, but humans were teaching the galaxy something new. Freedom was not something you asked for. It was something you took. The Great Council Chamber had never seen anything like this before. For 3,000 years it had been the place where the Zarian Emperor announced his conquests to the galaxy. Now representatives from 67 different species sat in the ancient hall, and none of them were there to bow before imperial power. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the circular chamber, her simple human uniform contrasting sharply with the elaborate robes and armor worn by the other delegates. To her right sat the Carathian ambassador, whose people had been enslaved by the Dominion for 8 centuries. To her left, the representative of the Thekron mining colonies who had never been allowed to speak in their own defense until today. Emperor Zexthor entered the chamber with only a small escort. His usual parade of guards and advisors was gone. The Dominion could no longer spare the troops for ceremony when half the galaxy was in open rebellion. The Emperor had aged years in the past months. His blue skin looked pale and tired. The weight of watching his empire crumble had broken something inside him. But he still carried himself with dignity as he took his place at the council table. "I am here," he said simply. Sarah nodded respectfully. "Your Imperial Majesty, thank you for coming. We know this is not easy." "Easy?" Zexthor laughed bitterly. "Nothing about this situation is easy, Admiral Chen. 6 months ago I ruled half the galaxy. Today I can barely control my own capital system." "The choice is yours, Majesty," said Ambassador Vektar of the Carathian Republic. "You can continue, fighting a war you cannot win, or you can help us build something better." The Emperor looked around the chamber at faces that represented worlds he had once commanded without question. Some showed anger for centuries of oppression. Others showed pity for his fallen empire. None showed fear. "What exactly are you proposing?" Zexthor asked. Sarah activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored regions, representing various governments and alliances. "A federation," she said. "Not an empire ruled by one species, but a voluntary association of independent worlds working together for mutual benefit." "The Galactic Federation?" the Emperor asked. "You want to replace the Dominion with a democracy?" "Not replace," Sarah corrected. "Transform. The Dominion has infrastructure, experience, and knowledge that the galaxy needs, but it also has a system of government that no longer works in a galaxy where every species has access to advanced technology." General Krovex, who had been given permission to attend as a military advisor, leaned forward. "Admiral, what guarantee do we have that this federation will not simply become another empire once the humans gain enough power?" Sarah smiled. "General, that is the beauty of the human system. We designed it specifically to prevent any one group from gaining too much power. Every member world gets an equal vote regardless of size or military strength. Decisions are made by consensus, not by force." "That sounds inefficient," observed Minister Yarthan. "It is inefficient," Sarah agreed. "Democracies are messy, slow, and frustrating. but they are also stable, fair, and adaptable. And most importantly, they do not create the kind of resentment that leads to galaxy-wide rebellion. Delegate Morkesh of the Tenthari Collective raised one of her forearms. What happens to species that do not wish to join this federation? They remain independent, Sarah replied. Federation membership is voluntary. We will trade with non-members, negotiate with them, even defend them if they are attacked, but we will not force anyone to join. Even if they pose a threat? Asked Ambassador Colvin from the Hegemony Worlds, especially if they pose a threat. History has shown that forced alliances create more problems than they solve. Better to have honest enemies than unwilling allies. Emperor Zexthor studied the galactic map. The colored regions showed how the galaxy might look under the proposed Federation system. Some areas remained independent, others formed smaller alliances, but the largest section was marked for the new Federation. And what happens to me? He asked quietly. To my people? We have been the rulers for so long I am not certain we know how to be anything else. That is up to you, Sarah replied. The Zarian Republic could be a founding member of the Federation. Your people have administrative experience that would be valuable. Your knowledge of interstellar logistics could help organize trade and communication. The Zarian Republic? Zexthor repeated. We cannot have an emperor in a democratic federation, Sarah explained gently, but we can have an elected president, a prime minister, or whatever form of democratic government your people choose. The chamber fell silent as the emperor considered this. To give up his imperial power voluntarily was almost unthinkable. But the alternative was to watch his empire continue to collapse in civil war. What about our military? General Krovex asked. The Dominion fleet is still the largest in the galaxy. Which is why we need you, replied Admiral Chen. The Federation will need a defense force to protect member worlds from outside threats. Your ships and experience would form the backbone of that force. Under human command? The general asked suspiciously. Under federal command. Officers from all member species, with leadership positions based on merit and experience rather than political connections. Ambassador Vectar spoke up. What about reparations? The Dominion has exploited our worlds for centuries. Do we simply forgive and forget? Sarah nodded. That is a fair question. The Federation proposes a reconstruction fund, financed by all member worlds according to their ability to pay. Former Dominion worlds would contribute more initially, but the goal is to rebuild rather than punish. And if some species want revenge rather than reconstruction? Asked Delegate Morkesh. Then they will have to pursue that outside the Federation. Sarah replied firmly. One of our founding principles is that justice serves the future, not the past. We cannot build a better galaxy while fighting old wars. Emperor Zexthor leaned back in his chair. Admiral Chen, I must ask you something directly. Why are you offering this? Your people have won. You could demand our unconditional surrender and rule the galaxy yourselves. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of hard-learned wisdom. Your Majesty, humans have tried conquest before. On our own world, we built empires that lasted centuries, but every empire falls eventually, usually bringing great suffering to everyone involved. We learned that ruling others is not the same as leading them. And you think leadership is better than rule? I think cooperation is better than domination. The galaxy is vast and full of challenges that no single species can handle alone. We need the Karathian agricultural knowledge, the Thekron mining expertise, the Zarian organizational skills. We need everyone working together, not fighting each other. The Emperor stood and walked to one of the great windows that looked out over the capital city. In the distance he could see the smoke from riots that his remaining forces could no longer control. How do you know this Federation will work? He asked without turning around. We do not, Sarah admitted. Democracy is an experiment that never ends. It requires constant effort from everyone involved. But the alternative is what we have now. Endless war and suffering. And if I refuse? If I choose to fight to the end? Then the Dominion will fall anyway, but with much more bloodshed. Your people will suffer, our people will suffer, and the galaxy will take generations to recover. Zexthor turned back to face the assembly. And if I agree, if I transform the Dominion into this republic you envision, then your people get to help build the future instead of being crushed by the past. Your knowledge and experience become gifts to the galaxy instead of tools of oppression. The Emperor looked around the chamber one more time. Representatives from dozens of species watched him expectantly. Some had been enemies of the Dominion for centuries. Others had been loyal allies. All of them were waiting to see if he would choose wisdom over pride. General Krovex, he said finally, in your professional opinion, can we win a continued war against this coalition? The old soldier shook her head. No, Majesty. The humans have taught too many species how to fight effectively. Every day we continue this war, we grow weaker, while they grow stronger. Minister Yarthan, can we maintain control of our remaining territories? Not for long, Majesty. The rebellions are spreading faster than we can suppress them. Emperor Zexthor nodded slowly. Then it appears our choice is between voluntary transformation and inevitable destruction. He walked back to his place at the council table and sat down formally. I, Zexthor, Emperor of the Zarian Dominion, hereby abdicate my imperial authority and request membership for the Zarian people in this proposed Galactic Federation. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Some delegates cheered. Others looked shocked. Ambassador Vectar leaned over to Sarah. Did he just voluntarily give up the largest empire in galactic history? Yes, Sarah replied, watching as the former Emperor signed the preliminary agreement. He chose the future over the past. 6 months later, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Federation Station, the new capital built in neutral space. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of worlds docking at the massive facility. The transition had not been easy. There had been violence on some worlds where die-hard Imperial loyalists refused to accept the new order. Some species had chosen to remain independent rather than join the Federation. A few had even tried to establish their own small empires. But most of the galaxy had embraced the new system. Trade was flourishing between worlds that had never been allowed to communicate directly. Scientific knowledge was being shared freely. Military resources were being used to explore new regions instead of conquering old ones. Admiral, called Captain Torres, who had become her aide-de-camp. President Zexthor is here for your meeting. Sarah smiled at the title. The former emperor had won election as the first president of the Zarian Republic by a wide margin. His people, it turned out, respected his wisdom in choosing peace over pride. Send him in. Zexthor entered the observation lounge looking healthier than he had in months. The burden of absolute power had been lifted from his shoulders, and he seemed younger for it. Admiral Chen, he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting he had learned. Or should I say Director Chen? Sarah shook his hand warmly. As the first Director General of the Galactic Federation, she now held a position with great responsibility but limited power, exactly as the founders had intended. President Zexthor, she replied. How are the integration efforts proceeding? Better than expected. Your people were right about voluntary cooperation being more effective than forced submission. Zarian efficiency combined with human innovation and Carathian agriculture is producing remarkable results. They stood together watching the busy traffic around the station. Ships that had once been enemies now worked side by side on joint missions. Do you ever regret it? Sarah asked quietly. Giving up your empire? Zexthor considered the question. I thought I would. For 3,000 years, my people believed that strength meant domination. But humans taught us something valuable. What was that? True strength is knowing when not to use your power. The Dominion was strong enough to conquer, but not wise enough to rule. The Federation may be weaker in terms of military force, but it is stronger in every way that actually matters. Sarah nodded. The galaxy is large enough for all of us. It just took a while for everyone to figure that out. Indeed. And Admiral, thank you. For what? for showing us that there was another way, for proving that enemies can become allies, that conquerors can become partners, and that even the mightiest empire can choose to become something better. As they watched, a joint exploration fleet departed the station, heading for the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. The fleet included ships from 7 different species working together to discover what lay beyond the known stars. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had freed it.